Well, hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Ashmit Kumar, and here are the headlines that we're tracking this evening. Sensex and Nifty failed to hold opening gains as financials see a sharp fall. Midcaps outperform, with the Midcap Index ending at a record closing high. All 10 Adani Group stocks see a sharp decline. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to embark on his first state visit to America later this week is scheduled to address the US Congress during his stay. Sources tell us that the proposed General Electric Hindustan Aeronautics jet engine deal will eventually pave the way for 80% tech transfer. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken meets Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing in a bid to cool tensions between both the countries. Blinken is the first high-profile US official to visit China in more than 3 years. The government identifies fake input tax credit claims worth 15,000 crores during a special drive. 11,000 of the entities identified found to have claimed bogus GST input tax credits. Sources say that CBIC is likely to introduce additional validations within the GST return filing system to tackle the menace. Kharif sowing hit as Cyclone Biparjoy slows down the progress of monsoon. 37% rainfall deficit across India so far. Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh witness high deficit. Met Department says that the southwest monsoon will advance over several states in the next 2 to 3 days. Heavy rains caused flooding in Assam and Sikkim. Nearly 34,000 people affected in Assam. Hundreds of homes in Sikkim swept away due to landslides. Nearly 100 people are dead in Uttar Pradesh and Bihar as the states grapple with a severe heat wave. Officials say that most patients admitted in hospitals were above the age of 60. Individuals with prior ailments worsened due to the extreme heat. Another Indian pharma company under the scanner over substandard drugs. Nigeria's regulator flags Mumbai-based Synacare's paracetamol suspension for containing toxic substances. The product failed toxicity tests with deaths of 5 lab animals. No human fatalities were reported. Manipur remains tense as Indian Army soldier is injured after an exchange of gunfire with militants. Large parts of the state remain under curfew and mobile internet services are restricted. The ethnic violence, which began in May, has left more than 100 people dead and thousands displaced. The death toll in the flooding triggered by the destruction of the Kharif Dam 2 weeks ago rises to 52. United Nations accuses Kremlin of blocking aid delivery to Russia, controlled areas affected by flooding. Well, first up, the day's market action. The large street failed to hold opening gains, with the Nifty and Sensex seeing cuts of 0.25%. Financials led the fall, and the Nifty Bank fell over 0.5%. ICICI Bank was the biggest laggard. Midcaps, meanwhile, continue to outperform the blue chips to end at a record high. Prashant Nair is here, joining us now with a quick wrap of the day's market action.
Well, the market on the Nifty came within less than 10 points of a new all-time high, but then later slipped. Starting about 12:30 or so, the market started heading southwards, both on the Nifty and the Bank Nifty as well. Mid-caps and small caps, by the way, also cooled off. We were pointing out earlier in the morning before markets opened how on simple technical indicators, these two indices were looking a little overbought. So, from adding another 1% on a daily basis, these indices closed flat today. I'll get to stocks there in just a bit. So Nifty first, the gainers. HDFC Life added another 3% after Friday's strong gains on the back of the top management interview to CNBC-TV18. The Bajaj twins, both Finance and FinServ, were the other decent movers. On the downside, Adani Enterprises, Hero and Kotak Bank were some of the losses. Volumes were still on the side of gainers, so the list of volume-led losses is still short. Names like CG Power, Triveni Turbine, Bector Foods, Nucleus, Indocount. The volume-led gainers list is far longer, and you had names like Shriram Finance, JSPL, MRPL, Olectra Greentech, Wockhardt, Skipper, Paras Defense, HPL Power, Credit Access, E-Clerks, 5 Star, Inox Wind, and many more. As I said, volume still very much on the side of gainers, even though advanced decline was clean, almost 1:1. Now, US markets are shut, so when we come back tomorrow, there won't be any cues. Will the overbought nature of, at least in the near term, mid-caps and small-caps provide us with some more cool-off kind of period? If that were to happen, that wouldn't be entirely unwelcome. Back to you.
Right, Prashant, thanks a lot for that. Let's also take a look at how the oil markets have been faring. Crude oil prices slipped as questions over China's economy outweighed OPEC output cuts and the 7th straight drop in number of oil and gas rigs operating in the US. Well, this, of course, is the big focus now. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be embarking on his first state visit to the United States later this week. The visit promises to be a crucial one, as both the nations would be consolidating their defense ties. The Prime Minister will be leading the celebrations of the International Day of Yoga at the United Nations headquarters on the 21st of June. He will then be traveling to Washington, D.C., where a ceremonial welcome has been planned. During the course of his stay, the Prime Minister will also address the joint session of the US Congress and meet top CEOs and members of the Indian diaspora. Foreign Secretary Vinay Katwara said that bilateral defense cooperation and progress on defense industrial cooperation roadmap will be a priority during this visit.
The defense industrial production roadmap that the two countries have been discussing for some time, and which would hopefully be one of the very key outcomes during this visit, essentially focuses on all aspects of defense co-production, co-development.
Well, speaking of Prime Minister Modi's visit to the US, sources have told CNBC-TV18 that the proposed General Electric Hindustan Aeronautics jet engine deal is set to pave the way for 80% of technology transfer. Parishit Luthra is joining us now with more details. Parishit, tell us, what are your sources picking up?
Well, yes, this will be a big outcome of Prime Minister's visit to the United States. The jet engine deal between General Electric of the United States and Hindustan Aeronautics had been under work since January this year. But now we believe this has received approval at the highest political levels. And what India is getting, well, we wanted 100% technology transfer, but what has been agreed upon, we learn, is 80% technology transfer by value. And this technology transfer will happen in phases. So once the deal is signed this week, India will begin the process, a phase-wise process of procuring the manufacturing equipment from General Electric. And by the end of 3 years, 80% of the value addition to the engine will happen locally. And this is good for the Indian defense industry as well, because HAL has a supply chain here in India. And according to our sources, the government, 600 to 700 MSMEs could benefit from this supply chain of engines in the years to come. So several key parts of the engine we will be getting from the United States. Keeping this in mind, we are also seeing a deal between India and General Atomics. That will be a deal for Reaper drones, which will be very important for our maritime domain awareness. But more than that, it's a pivot towards the defense industry in the United States, how the integration of the two defense industries is going to take place. We're also going to sign enabling agreements on supply chain and reciprocal procurement, which means that the Indian defense industry is going to get very closely integrated with the US defense manufacturing supply chain. So that's going to be the big pivot which we're going to see during this visit.
Right, Parishit, thanks a lot for that. Now, the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken met Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing amidst frosty ties between the two nations. Blinken is the first high-profile US official to visit China in more than 3 years. According to the Chinese state media, President Jinping said that the two countries had candid and in-depth discussions. The Chinese leader also said that both US and China reached agreement on certain issues. However, no details have been announced. Well, back home, the Central Board of Indirect Taxes has been cracking down on fake GST claims. Sources suggest that the department has till date identified fake claims worth 15,000 crore rupees. Shivani Bajaj is joining us now with more details. Shivani, tell us more about this government crackdown.
Well, yes, according to the Finance Ministry sources, the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs, in its ongoing drive, has found that over 15,000 crore were taken as bogus input tax credit. CBIC had selected a total of 60,000 entities based on various risk metrics. The verification process, which is still underway, is completed for 43,000. Based on the process undertaken so far, 11,000 of these entities were found to have claimed bogus GST input tax credits. The drive against fake GST claims is still on, and the 2-month drive will end on July 16th. At the moment, there are two ways in which these bogus claims are being made. One is misdeclaring one's identity, or in many cases stealing someone else's identity, and also by misdeclaring the place of operation of the businesses. CBIC has also found that these businesses are furnishing bogus rent agreements and misrepresenting Aadhaar cards. Sources suggest that the Department of Indirect Taxes is now looking to tighten the validation norms for these invoices. The matter is likely to be taken up by the GST Council on July 11th, and sources suggest that CBIC is likely to introduce additional validations within the GST return filing system to weed out these bogus claims. The Department of Indirect Taxes is also using artificial intelligence and machine learning to tackle the issue of fake claims. Sources suggest that GST Council is most likely to pronounce on this matter in its July meeting. Back to you.
Right, Shivani, thanks a lot for that. But with that, it's time now to slip into a very short break. But coming up, Kharif sowing season has been hit as Cyclone Biparjoy slows down the progress of monsoons. 37% rainfall deficit across India so far. Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh witness high deficit. Details when we come back. Welcome back. Now, retail sales saw a year-on-year growth of 7% in May as per data from Retailers Association of India. The association has highlighted that they were witnessing moderate rate of growth could be attributed to a high base effect. Remember, companies like Aditya Birla Fashion, Shoppers Stop and Arvind Fashions have flagged soft consumer demand. Shilpa Ranipeta is here joining us with those details. Shilpa.
Well, the retail industry in India seems to be on a slow to moderate path of growth. Now, if you look at the latest numbers for May from the Retailers Association of India, sales were up about 7% on a year-on-year basis. And if you look at the last 2 months also, that is for April and for March, retail sales grew just about 6%. And this, in fact, has been the slowest expansion in growth in over a year. And if you remember the whole of last year, the retail industry had been seeing a strong double-digit growth. Now, let me run you through a few categories first. Quick service restaurants, so QSR sales, those were up just about 7%. And this is again an industry that was seeing double-digit growth over the last year. year. And in fact, even other companies like Jubilant or Sapphire or Devyani in this particular space had also flagged a slowdown in growth in their recent earnings. Beauty, wellness, personal care sales there also were a little slow, up just 5%. Consumer durable sales were just also up just about 5%, despite summer month of May usually being a peak season for some categories like air conditioners, refrigerators, etc. Food and grocery sales up about 8%, apparel 9%, furniture sales also up just about 2%, sports goods also just about 2%, and this RAI has said has been the slowest growth since the pandemic. Now, Retailers Association of India has said that it is witnessing a moderate growth over the previous year as consumers get back into their normal business routines, and this moderate growth also, more importantly, is because of a high base effect. For instance, April and May last year saw growth of about 23-24% each, and this was pent-up demand after retailers had started opening up post the pandemic. And RAI has said that you have to wait and watch to see how the next 3 years are going to pan out. Now, overall, also, if you see in the last earnings season, several companies had a flagged slowdown in growth. For instance, Aditya Birla Fashion, Shoppers Stop, Arvind all said there was soft demand, especially in tier 2, 3 and smaller towns and in the value segment due to inflation. But now with inflation moderating and coming down, there could be green shoots visible going ahead. Back to you.
Right, thanks a lot for that. Now, Kharif sowing has been hit significantly as Cyclone Biparjoy slowed down the progress of monsoon in India. Data from the Agriculture Ministry shows that India facing 37% deficit rainfall so far. Manisha Gupta joins us now with more details. Manisha, tell us, what are you picking up?
Well, yes, the monsoon until now has been a concern. It was a delayed monsoon in sense of onset, and the onset itself was weak, and the progress has been weak as well. And all of that really seems to be bothering the overall agriculture sowing. If you look at the overall number for India until now in sense of monsoon, we are down by nearly 37%. Maharashtra is one of the most deficient states in sense of rainfall right now at around 86%. Madhya Pradesh 93% deficient. You have Telangana 82% deficient. The IMD, of course, seems to be saying that the next 2 to 3 days are important. After that is when you would see progress of monsoon within Mumbai, Maharashtra and the rest of the states. And they also say that the first half of July is expected to be on the positive. There is still clarity awaited on the second half of July though. But what is really getting hit is the sowing numbers right now. We're already delayed by 10 to 15 days in sense of sowing, and the sowing might pick up as we look at the next fortnight or so. But it really is going to be a delayed sowing, so a delayed harvest, and then the yield and quality as per the weather changes as we go into the next months is something that can bother the crop as well. The numbers itself are on the weaker side, especially for important crops like paddy, which is down 14% in sense of sowing area as compared to previous year. Pulses is down 57%. Oilseeds is down 14% as well. The couple of crops which have actually done well is cotton, up 6%, and coarse cereals is up by 64% as well. But all eyes on the sky really, especially in the next week, where there is an expectation that the stalled monsoon just out of Maharashtra could be entering the state finally.
Actually, when the system was there, all the winds, they tend to organize themselves around the system. So in a way, it had sucked away all the moisture and the system was far away from the west coast. But now, since the system has made a landfall, slowly the westerlies have set in, as you can see in this, and we expect these westerlies to gain strength in the coming 2 or 3 days. That is why we expect these conditions are favorable for the onset of monsoon.
In more national news, over 100 people have died in Uttar Pradesh and Bihar as the states have been grappling with severe heat waves. Over 400 people have been admitted in hospitals in the past 3 days, and officials have said that most patients admitted were above the age of 60. In Uttar Pradesh, more than 60 people have died in the Balia district alone. Officials have confirmed that patients with pre-existing conditions have been most affected. In a similar situation in Bihar, more than 40 persons have lost their lives in the past 2 days. Among the fatalities, around 35 occurred at 2 hospitals in the state capital. Heavy rains, meanwhile, has led to flooding in several parts of Assam. Over 34,000 people in 12 districts have been affected. Lakhimpur is the worst hit district. Critical infrastructure like roads and bridges have been damaged. The Indian Met Department has declared red alert for several districts for the next 5 days. Over 142 villages are underwater. Meanwhile, over 100 homes and several bridges were swept away by massive landslides in North Sikkim. Restoration work of roads and bridges is currently underway. The Indian Army has rescued over 300 stranded passengers in north of Sikkim. Now, moving to Tamil Nadu, parts of the state witnessed heavy rains leading to waterlogging and flood-like situations. Schools have been shut in over 6 districts in Tamil Nadu, including in the capital, Chennai. Well, on to the latest from Manipur now. An Indian Army soldier has been injured after an exchange of gunfire with militants. Large parts of the state remain under curfew and mobile internet services remain restricted. The ethnic violence, which began in the month of May, has left more than 100 people dead and over thousands displaced. In some international news now, Canada-based pro-Khalistan leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar has been killed in a targeted shooting in Canada. Officials say that Nijjar died on the spot after he was shot dead by 2 unidentified assailants. Remember, the Indian government declared him as a terrorist in 2022 due to his involvement in various acts of violence. And well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Business 360. Thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned to CNBC-TV18. The news and updates continue on the other side.